People are coming to see you with the hope that they can do something more than what they're doing right now. But I think you just don't have to be afraid to fail. I mean, what's the big deal?
Hello and welcome to Everyone Is. I am your host, Jennifer Coronado. The intent of this show is to engage with all types of people and build an understanding that anyone who has any kind of success has achieved that success because they are a creative thinker. So whether you are an artist or a cook or an award-winning journalist, everyone has something to contribute to the human conversation. And now, as they say, on with the show.
Judy Tocco was the president and CEO of Aspire Wealth Partners out of Tucson, Arizona, which started its life as Tocco Financial Company that she founded. And we are here today to talk about her life and her life as a financial planner. So welcome, Judy, to Everyone Is.
Thank you.
One of the best things that I liked about us talking was when we were trying to schedule time with you, you were like, oh yeah, I would be happy to do your podcast, but I just retired and I have to go party in Nashville. And I was like, all right, yes, we've picked the right person for this podcast.
We all have our priorities, Jen.
That's right. Like I was thinking the Ariana Grande song, Yes, and that's the life you were living at that moment. So thank you for joining us today. Before we get into your life as a financial planner, I want to talk a little bit about your life in general. Were you born in Tucson, Arizona?
Yeah.
Big family, little family?
I've got a younger brother, 2 years younger than me, older brother, 10 years older than me.
So you were the middle kid?
Yeah, the middle kid.
When you were a little kid, were you into math? Was that a thing that you were good at or interested in?
I was always really good at school. I was one of those people that didn't really need to study much and usually got A's, Dean's List, Honor Society. Nothing really came hard to me at school. Some things didn't interest me at all, but I still did okay at them. One of the things I used to hate was history. I thought it was so boring. Now I think it's fascinating. You grow up and realize, maybe there is something to be learned from the past.
Yeah, you're living history every day and you don't even know it.
Exactly. But didn't plan on being in this business. Actually, back in the day, the U of A was recruiting women as physicians, and they tried to talk me into taking the MSATs. And I really did think about it. But at that point, it was like, okay, at the age they were bringing that up and the years it would have taken to get there, it was like, no, I don't want to do that. My original career path was law. I wanted to be an attorney. And I started off on that path. And after about 2 semesters, I was ready to hang myself. It was the most boring occupation. And if it wasn't boring, it was like, okay, what part of law are you going to go into? Corporate law, super boring. I'd just been reading 200 pages of contracts for the sale of the business. Oh my God. Really glad I didn't go into that. But just on accident, I got into banking. Started off with Mountain Bells Credit Union at the time, left there, went to what was Hughes Missile Systems Credit Union. And I hired in there back in 85 as the VP of Operations.
How did you get hired into the VP of Operations role? What did you have to have in order to get that role at the credit union?
Well, basically experience in banking. And I had a few years with Mountain Bell. So they took it over. The credit union was a lot smaller then when I started than it is now. I was on the advisory board for Visa. I used to fly out to California every quarter for board meetings and do things like that. I ran everything that happens for you as a client of a bank or a credit union, your checks, your credit cards, your loans, your home mortgages, your payroll deposits, things like that. I ran all the back office stuff. And after a couple of years, the board did a survey of the members of Hughes, which at that time was just strictly Hughes. So they asked, what are the services that we don't have that you guys would be interested in? And one of the things they mentioned that was high up on their list was investment services. I had no experience in investment services.
So you said, I'm going to do that because I have no experience.
Yeah, pretty much. It was, this was my interview, to be honest with you. The board met on whatever night it was. The next day, a couple of the board members came into my office and said, this is what we're thinking about doing. The board wants to pursue this. We really don't know anything about it. Are you interested in it? It's like, I guess I could be. And their whole question was they didn't know anything either. Do you know what an annuity is? I didn't. And I said, yeah, I got the concept of it. So if you want it, you can stop being VP of operations. You can start a new corporation for us and do the investment arm of it. So I didn't really realize what that entitled, but I was kind of sick of doing the back stuff. Wasn't too much excitement going on there. So I started the corporation, met with the attorneys, got the licenses. Then I had to go get licensed.
You did all the sort of legal things that you were avoiding.
Yes, right. So I had to go get licensed and do all of that. Did it, and I loved it. It was just like always solving a puzzle to me.
So when you had to get licensed, what does that mean? How does that work?
To be able to offer securities, you have to take federal exams. So you have to take like the Series 6 or Series 7. I took both. One's for like mutual fund, one's for general security, stocks, bonds, all the miscellaneous stuff. Then you have to get the law part of it, the Series 65, 66, the blue sky law part of it. And then if you're going to sell insurance or insurance-related products, you have to get a state insurance license in every state that you're going to do business in. And then I wanted to become a certified financial planner. Because to me, when you get a Series 6 or a 7 or an insurance license, I would say you're just smart enough to be dangerous. So I went and got the CFP. During that time, too, I was working on finishing my bachelor's, started my master's, started the CFP, which is another master's level course. It's a 2-year thing. It's kind of like the CPA exam, except for it's a little bit more holistic. It includes like pensions and estate planning law, taxation, investments, insurance, budgeting, things like that. There's an each section type thing. You had to pass each section. And when I did it, you didn't sit at a computer and do it. You did for like half of it. It was a 6-hour exam on each section, and you couldn't progress until you passed that section. It was like 150 multiple choice, and then they would give you a case if they wrote up a case on your financial situation. And it might be a 15, 20-page case, complete with financial statements on you. And then you had to write an essay as to all the things that you need to do and why it's recommended. So, of course, that meant you didn't get your exam results back for months because somebody had to analyze it and do it. So, luckily, I never knew, should I start studying for the next section or did I fail this and need to go backwards? But luckily, I passed all 6 sections on the first time. Took me about 2.5 years because Evan was little.
So you had a toddler at that time.
Yeah. I used to sit in my kitchen, which is where I had my computer. And you don't ignore a toddler when you get home. But I would, after I put him to bed, I would go in the kitchen and start working. I had a little computer desk in there. And a lot of times at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, I'd roll backwards or look backwards and he'd be asleep behind my chair on the floor. So he's been a mama's boy the whole time through. But, it was a lot. It was a lot of studying and doing that sort of thing. But once I got going, and then I hired, at that time, Payne Weber was really big. I hired a couple of advisors from Payne Weber, and I just never looked back. Yeah, it was really fun.
Going back, you looked at law and it was kind of boring and contract law sucked, and you didn't say sucked, but I'm paraphrasing. And then you got into the financial stuff and you said, I loved it. And what did you love about it?
I think it was the interaction with people. When you're in law, you never go see an attorney because you're happy about something, right? You go see an attorney because there's some legal problem that you're in, you're going through a divorce, somebody's suing you over something. It just seemed so negative, all of it. Whereas this was, people are coming to see you with the hope that they can do something more than what they're doing right now and get to a goal, whatever that may be. I mean, everybody's goal is to eventually retire and not have to go to work, right? But goals are buying houses and goals are putting kids through school, and there's lots of things. Everybody's got a different story. Everybody's at a different phase in their life. We work with people that are really pretty young, a lot of young engineers right out of school we work with, a lot of physicians, and they're so busy. They're like herding cats, but they're kind of fun to work with too. Engineers never admit that they don't know what they're talking about. And physicians are the first ones to say they don't know it, they don't care to know it, just do it for them. So it's good. You feel appreciated that way too.
Keeping that in mind, the different types of clients you've had, do you feel like you had to adjust who you are to them a little bit? Did you find that, or did you always take the same approach with people?
I would say for the most part, I'm me.
Mm-hmm.
And when I took this leap, and you're not going to be a good fit with every client, and you're not going to be a good fit in every career you decide you want to try. I mean, I went through a few, definitely. But I think you just don't have to be afraid to fail. I mean, what's the big deal? If you fail, so what? You stop, you think, okay, which direction do I need to turn? And you keep going. So I've never really thought of myself as creative. But I've always been a risk taker, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, if it works, good. If it doesn't, so what?
Yeah. We talked a little bit about, you worked at Hughes, and then, you've talked about how you went on to create your own company, but there's a story I know about you, Judy. And it's about when you left
the credit union
and your approach on starting your new business. And I wonder if you would be open to sharing that story.
Yeah, when I started the new corporation for the credit union, because credit unions are nonprofits, so they had to wholly own a corporation that was a for-profit. I mean, you don't do financial planning because you're a priest. You do it because you want to make a living and you want to help people. So the CEO of the credit union at the time, he just retired about a year ago. I mean, we're really pretty good friends. Throughout the years, he was hired about a year after I was. And he was a sharp guy, but he was the type that wouldn't change course unless he was forced to. Every year, the same promotions at the same times, nothing different, nothing new. We used to spend hours at times in meetings, me talking about what color the new branch floors are going to be stained. It's like, who cares? I don't care. But he had to have a consensus on everything because I think he was always afraid to really take a leap on his own. Mm-hmm. And I just got really sick of it. So he was always the, if it ain't broke, don't fix it type of guy. And I was the one of it. Don't matter if it's not broke. It still could be better type.
Right.
We finally came to blows over it one day. I went in. Was at a different branch, came into the main corporate office where we both had our offices. And I don't even know what brought it up, to be honest with you, at that point. But I had a do not compete, do not solicit, contract with them, not to leave. And we finally just said, this isn't working anymore. You are stuck in 15 years ago. You're afraid to try anything new. I want to keep going. So we came to terms. He said, well, you're just not a good fit here anymore. I said, I agree with you. I'm not a good fit here anymore. Not under you, because we're so different in our approach to trying new things. So we agreed to disagree, and I left. They let me out of some of my contracts, but the things that they did not let me out of was the do not compete and do not solicit contracts. Because when I was there at Hughes, at that time, they had what was called the Hughes Management Club, which was a certain pay grade and up at the plant site. So it was mostly like the engineers, directors, program managers, things like that, and up. And I was president of that club for 2 terms running. So I knew everybody. So he was a little shaken about that because we had started building a really nice cash flow business for the credit union. But my brother and I, this was on a Friday that I left. They gave me copies of all my contracts just to remind me that they would sue me blind if I did anything stupid. And now that's been struck down by the law just in the last couple of weeks. You can't take away a person's livelihood. And so Joel, my younger brother, and I are talking, and he goes, you know what you should do? He goes, everybody knows you. He goes, you should just reach out to them. I said, I cannot reach out to them. I'll get sued. So we're looking at the contract. It said nothing about advertising. So what I did is I scraped together some money. Billboards are not inexpensive things, but I put a great big billboard right outside the main entrance to the plant site. So my picture, the new company name, the phone number, and that's basically it. So within hours of that billboard going up, calls are coming in by the dozens per day. And that's what helped me build my business. And they got a little miffed about it and went to their attorney. And the attorney said, "You didn't say she couldn't advertise. And she's not within the mile radius of her main office where you're at. So too bad, so sad." So it worked out great. So I was a one-man show for about a year. I rented an office and did my own thing for about a year, got my first year's taxes done. And the CPA said, "Oh my God, you're doing great. You have no expenses. Build a building." So that's kind of where it started. Built the first building, hired a kid. His name was James. He was a really nice guy. But unfortunately, he got in a fight with his girlfriend. Police report filed. In our business, you get a police report filed on you, you're gone. So I had to let him go. My friend Barb, who I went to high school with, was working as the executive assistant for the CEOs, a couple of them at Carondelet hospitals. She had about had it. So I said, "Why don't you come over and work with me?" Because I knew she's super detail oriented, and so am I. So that was really the start. So we went from me to right now, the business has about 11 people, and we're looking like crazy to hire more because we just keep growing, and it's good. But, it's hard to find advisors right now. It really is. There's a lot of us are in my age group in the 60s. I don't need to work anymore. I'm tired. I'm sick of the legal hassles with everything and all the regs and Congress, but they can do anything they want and not go to jail for insider trading and all the other things that you and I would hang for.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people leaving. And, I think women really need to look at this because I think women are creative thinkers for the most part. We multitask a whole bunch, whereas I think men are very smart, but I think they're more focused on one thing. When I left, we were with LPL Financial at the time. That's the broker dealer that we use. I brought the credit union in Tucson along with the credit union in California, the Hughes Raytheon now, to LPL. We did it jointly. And when I left, when the deals with the credit union was, I want to be able to stay with LPL if I want to stay with LPL.
What is LPL versus what your company is? Because part of the things that you send out, they come from LPL Financial, but you're your own company. So how do those two work?
As independent financial advisors, you can custody your clients' assets wherever you want to, right? So we can custody them at Schwab or Ameritrade or Fidelity or T. Rowe Price or LPL.
What does custody mean?
It means they're the ones that actually have the trading desks. They process all the trades. They have all the trading software. They're the ones that generate the statements and send them out. So it's not the Bernie Madoff thing where he was doing everything in his own building and those statements were nothing but lies.
Yeah, totally.
Right. So it's kind of that safety net where if we got mad at LPL and said, "Okay, we've had it. We're moving everybody to Schwab," Schwab would say, "Great, we'll do all those services for you." So I chose LPL because they don't have any of their own proprietary products, which means, if you're with Schwab or with Fidelity, they want you to use their stuff. And some of it's good, some of it's not. And my money's in the same thing. So I want what I want.
Right.
For myself and my clients.
You did the financial advising side of it, and then LPL they're the trading desk.
Right.
Was that role ever interesting to you? Like the actual traders? Like, did you want a Wolf of Wall Street it? Is that what you wanted to do, Judy?
No, because really the traders they work at Wall Street and they're on the ground screaming like they did 50 years ago orders. It's kind of archaic. But no, I didn't want that. That to me is you're just an order taker. I'm calling up and saying, "Hey, Jen wants 500 shares of Amazon. somebody on the floor is buying 500 shares of Amazon. In this case, it's going to LPL, and then LPL is taking it to the floor. And when it's aggregated like that, your 500 shares, my 500 shares, everybody else's zillion shares, get a little bit better deal, right? Rather than doing it on your own, buying a handful of shares here or there. So no, I never wanted to do that. That isn't there's no problem solving there. It's just processing buy and sell orders.
Right. So for you, like when you're looking at the financial industry, you've been in it for 40 years now.
Yep.
What are the biggest changes and transitions, and how did you as a person shift yourself to those transitions? How do you go about doing that?
I think I kind of jumped into what everything has evolved to now a little ahead of the curve. I mean, being the CFP, you're bound as a fiduciary, right? Nobody even heard the word fiduciary 5 or 10 years ago. Now everybody comes in and goes, are you a fiduciary? Yep, have been since the 1990s. It's like, oh, we didn't know they existed back then. It's like CFPs are always fiduciaries. The guy with a Series 7 or the guy with an insurance license, he is not a fiduciary. They can do their standard of care is a lot less.
I see. Well, explain to me what, like I'm a drama major, what fiduciary means.
Fiduciary basically means, in a nutshell, that everything we do has got to be 100% in your best interest, right? With a brokerage, with a person who is not a fiduciary, just a guy with a Series 7, say, or a Series 6, they might have 2 different products that would fit your need, right? Mm-hmm. One is going to pay them 4% and one's going to pay them 2%. Which one do you think you're going to get? You're going to get the one that's going to pay them 4%. Whereas right. A fiduciary really needs to look and say, hey, these are comparable. They're the same thing. I can get it for her at half the cost. That's the one we've got to get. Or the recommendations that we make have to be based on your best interest, not in us getting any kind of reward for it. And the industry has really evolved to where there used to be some investment products out there that would pay advisors 10, even 12%. Now, pretty much they're level across the board because they know they have to answer to people who want to make sure their advisors living up to a fiduciary standard.
That's interesting. I know nothing about investment. Anything I know about investments, honestly, I get from you. Full disclosure to everyone who's listening. So how do you analyze the market, and how do you continue to educate yourself on how the market works? What are the things in the market that are in play during the 2008 economic crisis? How do you wrap your head around how to deal with things like that? What are your processes?
For us, information comes in a fire hose. You know, if clients go, I get information too. It's no, you get Yahoo Finance free. Right. Mm-hmm. So you get some bias in there depending on who's sponsoring Yahoo Finance. Right. Whereas with us, there is a lot of white papers put out by research firms that we subscribe to, that we pay a lot of money for every year, just trying to get independent feed. Plus all the investment firms, whether it's LPL has got their own research department, Fidelity, T. Rowe Price, MFS, everybody and their grandmother has their own research firms. And they're providing their analysis of the market too. And I think part of it is just having done it for so long. Mm-hmm. I mean, in 2007, 2008, I had been doing this since 1987.
Another financial crisis year?
Yes. I think it was the closest I ever came in my career to saying, hell with it. I'm getting everybody out because I was a nervous wreck, and it's my job not to be the nervous wreck, because everybody else who doesn't do this for a living doesn't watch it like we do. So I came really close. I did sell out of what were called structured notes, which were bank issued notes, because I was really worried that some of the big banks would fail and those notes would go for 100,000 down to zero. Right. As soon as they announced, that was the only thing I sold out of. And I replaced those. As soon as I sold them, I bought back into the market because history shows we have been through a lot of crap over the years economically for hundreds of years, right? Since the nation started, there's been good times and bad times. But if you just look at it historically and calm down, you have to adjust.
Yeah.
But, you don't just get out, because study after study shows that those people who get scared out of the market are way behind the 8 ball 5-10 years down the road. But I admit that I think was the most unnerving time. When COVID hit was another one.
Yeah.
That was such a fast and furious downturn. I mean, that was like 33% downturn on the S&P 500 in about 30 days. And they hit bottom, started coming back up right in the middle of all this mess. And, the phone was ringing off the hook, and clients are like, oh my God, we should get out. We've never done this. No, we haven't. But if we get out, we're going to shoot ourselves in the foot. So what do? We look at different things. You start getting rid of the more consumer discretionary things like restaurants and Disneyland and things that people were not doing, airlines, things like that. And you get back into the basics, right?
Yeah.
The tech industry did great, needed tech more than ever during COVID. I never used Zoom before COVID. Now it's a routine part of life. We're on Zoom almost every day, even with clients that are in town. And we have clients in 26 different states. It was like, it's kind of nice to see their faces. Some people I'd never met in person. So it kind of put a different element into the business. Made it a little bit more personal, I think.
How did you expand across 26 different states from Tucson, Arizona?
We started basically with Tucson, but I had a lot of clients in California too, because I used to fly back and forth to California and invest there too. So a lot of California people, and then people start moving, right? They leave Raytheon or Hughes and they go to work for IBM in Minnesota. So we're in Minnesota, or people retire. They say, heck with California, heck with Arizona. I'm going to Nevada where there's no state tax, or I'm going to New Mexico where it's cooler and it's not so crowded as Arizona. So just little by little, just kind of splinters out. And then those people refer their family members. And most family members don't live in the same state as where they grew up. So it just kind of splintered out. So yeah, it's a little bit of a job because every state has got their own requirements. Good thing there's some reciprocity arrangements out there, but it just spread. It just grew like wildfire, and it still is. So really lucky for that.
One of the things I hear a lot in what you're talking about is sort of the connections that you've made over the years. Like you talked about how you knew so many people when you were at Hughes and you were able to take those relationships and turn that into a business. So how involved are you in a larger community that keeps you connected? And what do those communities look like? And how do you approach that? Like you're not an introvert, but how do you approach new relationships with new clients or new people in the industry?
With new clients, people come to our office. It's not going sitting at your kitchen table and talking about things. So it was a comfort level for me. And I would have to say I am an introvert in a lot of situations. Yeah, I think so. Because I'm not real comfortable in a room full of people I really don't know. One of my good friends, she comes here from Reno. She lives in Reno. We'll go somewhere. We'll know everybody in the restaurant before we're out of there because she's talked to everybody. I would never do that. But I don't know. I think it's a confidence level. When you're confident in your abilities to be able to help, I think you're more likely to get out there and do that. Over the years, I've been on a board of a lot of different charities and organizations, from therapeutic riding in Tucson to Open Inn, which was a homeless shelter for kids, basically. I do a lot of stuff with Tucson Unified School District, the Educational Enrichment Foundation. So you get to know a lot of people that way too. Over the last couple of years, because it's so busy in this transition, because I knew I was going a couple of years ago.
You knew you were going to retire. You had that plan.
Yeah. And there was just so much going on with the transition of the business legally and financially and everything. I stepped off the boards and said, give me a break. I don't have time right now. When I retire, I'll consider getting back on doing more community service work, which I already started with TUSD, but
What is that organization?
Tucson Unified School District.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So in the Educational Enrichment Foundation, they have a lot of little splinter groups in TUSD. Tucson, the middle of Tucson is not the good part of Tucson anymore. It used to be when we grew up, it was a nice part of Tucson. Now it's the suburbs that are nice, and Tucson itself and the city limits, those schools, the kids have grown up. When I went to Olive Reading High School, when I started my freshman year, it had just come off double sessions, and there was 8,000 kids going there.
Wow.
Now it's mostly empty, right? Because they're in the center of town. There's not really young families in a lot of the center of town. They're more on the outskirts. I think it's starting to change. They're starting to move back in and do things like that. But, it's just different. It's different. But I think just keep it in contact. And, some of them are starting to contact me now. So will you help? And so will you be back on the board? I'm still not to the point where I want to be sitting in meetings. It's like, I would rather go muck the stalls for the horses or wash a horse right now than be sitting in a board meeting again. I'm not ready for that yet.
Yeah. I want to ask you about this whole meme stock craze. What do you think about that? Like the AMC what do you think about that? It feels like investing is so much more emotional because of social media than it used to be.
Yeah. And I think that's wrong. I mean, the bottom line is investing is numerical. It's not emotional, but it is a very emotional thing because money is emotional for people. You want to make it, you're afraid of losing it. I think there's a lot of opportunity to be in the wrong thing at the wrong time. I don't like Bitcoin. I kind of like blockchain, but I don't like Bitcoin. I think it's still a little too scammy and unregulated for me. Meme stocks, same thing. It's just like, really? When push comes to shove and times are bad, who's going to buy that thing from you? It's only worth what you can sell it for.
Right.
Right. So to me, I don't know. I'm more into sticking with I won't say just the big companies because I've done really well in some small companies too. But you have to have something that you feel if it isn't making a profit right now, that the potential is there. And I think you have to get a little gut feeling. Like I had a contractor that's working on my house up north. He's been a general contractor forever. He's opened a women's spa in Pine Top, Arizona, where my house is. And he goes, "Do you want to be a partner?" I don't know anything about a women's spa. You don't know anything about a women's spa. He goes, "Oh, but there's nothing here." I said, "There's a few things to hear in Pine Top because I've gone to get massages. There's a couple nice places. You're not. I don't think you're going to make it." He goes, "So you don't want to be a partner?" "No, I don't want to be a partner." So I think you really have to take the emotion out of investing and you have to look at the numbers.
What are the things that you've done in your career, your life, that you're most proud of? What are those things? What do you think about that?
Definitely starting my own business before I even started it, which I started like a week after I left Keys Credit Union. I had a couple job offers with some of the big banks here doing investments just like I was doing. I thought, I'm going to do it for myself. So when I contacted LPL, because I got permission to stay with LPL from the credit union, and LPL is a Fortune 500 company. And Dan Arnold, who's the CEO of LPL, super nice guy. Him and I are good friends. We were sitting on the beach outside of Puerto Vallarta in Punta Mita, actually, like a year ago. And we're sitting outside this beautiful restaurant in the ocean. And he goes, "Why aren't there more women advisors?" I said, "Number one, I think women sometimes don't have the confidence to do that." I said, "I think they're better advisors and CEOs than men." Just statistically looking at companies run by women CEO versus men CEOs, women run firms are more profitable, public firms. We're really underrepresented in boards and stuff. And I said, "But you know why? One of the reasons why there isn't many women advisors I said, I'm going to tell you something, Dan. When I started my own business and I'm talking to your office, your recruiters to get me set up as a new business, as a new rep, I said, the guy I talked to, and I said, I can't remember his name. And even if I did, I wouldn't mention it. Probably not even there anymore anyways. He told me flat out that people who start their own business that come from banks or credit unions, they never make it. He says he really didn't even give me the time of day. I had to push him to get everything done. He goes, you're kidding me. We said that to you. I said, yes, you did. And you still treat women in this business the same way. I said, if you go up, and I've seen you do it, Dan, we're outside in a cocktail hour or party, and there's a couple there, and you go up and shake the man's hand, assuming he's the advisor. I said, you got to get with the times, man. Women are doing as good a job, if not a better job, than a lot of men in a lot of occupations. When you look at colleges, people coming out of colleges, there's more women doctors coming out than men doctors coming out. There's more women attorneys than men. I said, but unfortunately, in the finance world, it's still more men. It's still an old boys club. And I said, you guys got to get past it. Mm. So I think doing that and actually making it, there are 23,000 offices that LPL supports. We're number 6. So we're in the top tier of the 1% out there. We are number 400 in the nation, regardless of the firm, whether it's Merrill Lynch or Fidelity, whatever. So, and 2 women own that business, right? It's like, we can do it.
Honestly, Judy, you're a baller. That's why I wanted to talk to you today. You officially retired in April. Is that right?
Yeah, March 21st was my last day. We're still working on contracts and signing, so I'm technically still there, but I haven't been in. I help. I do some work online and do some research and stuff and help with a little bit of the portfolios, and I'll keep doing that for a while, probably for the next couple of years. Jen is really good. Jen Akins, my business partner, excellent at it. But, she's going through a big transition right now, too. So I told her, I'm here. I'll help you out. Have laptop, we'll travel.
I love it. And so you're not on boards yet. You'd rather wash some horses or muck for some horses. What are your immediate plans? What are you going to do now? What's Judy's next 6 months going to look like?
I started with the trip to Nashville the next morning. That was a blast. Never been there. Love it. I would rather go back there than Vegas. I think it was just a lot more fun. I love to golf. So I'm golfing 2 or 3 times a week. All my clients are going, you got to learn how to play pickleball. So for retirement, I got all kinds of pickleball equipment. I haven't tried it yet, but that's why I said I got to do that because I don't want to get thrown out of the retiree club. I think it's a must.
Listen, I'm not a retiree and I love pickleball. We'll go play pickleball when I'm down there again.
Perfect. Yeah. So that I love to travel, and I've been outside the United States a lot. I'm going to Australia in March. Got that planned. One of my clients goes, you're in Australia. You might as well go to Singapore. It's only 3 hours away. It's like, well, they'll probably be about as close as I get. I looked it up. It's 8 hours away. I don't know where you must have slept through the whole flight, but I might add that on there. But what I want to do right now, like I said, I've been to a lot of places, especially in Europe, and I love it. Evan's trying to talk me into buying a house in Italy. He's sending me listings every other day.
How convenient, Evan.
Yes, because I made the mistake of telling him that if you get dual citizenship, which I can get, doesn't take that much work, a little genealogy research and some paperwork, that you get a better deal on taxes and stuff like that in Italy. So, man, that put him on the bandwagon. So he sends me pictures of these hellholes that are 700 years old. He goes, look at this. It's like, Evan, I said, everything in that place is 700 years old too. I said, I wouldn't say never buy a place there, but it isn't going to be one of those places, something newer. But, so I want to travel, but I want to actually see a lot of stuff in the U.S. I've been to all the big cities in the U.S., L.A., San Francisco, Chicago, New Orleans, all the fun places, New York, a bunch of times. But I haven't been to Mount Rushmore. I haven't been to Yellowstone. So that's kind of what I want to do. Just take a year or two and just a lot of places in Utah that I want to see.
Beautiful parks there.
Yeah. So I want to do that. I think that's next on the bucket list more than the big ordeal trips, more the car trips or 4-hour flight trips. Sounds a lot better than the 14-hour one coming up going to Australia next year. So that's it. I got my mom still around. She's just still around. So checking on her a couple times a week at least. She's doing well, thank God. But she's 90. So I don't want to wander too far either.
Yeah, that's fair.
So,
you've had an amazing career and you've done some amazing things and you continue to do amazing things. And I'm just impressed by you. And I want to thank you so much for chatting with us today.
thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Everyone Is. Everyone Is produced and edited by Chris Hawkinson. Executive producer is Aaron Dussault. Music by Doug Infinite. Our logo and graphic design is by Harrison Parker, and I am Jen Coronado. Everyone Is a Slightly Disappointed Productions production, dropping every other Thursday wherever podcasts are available. Make sure to rate and review, and maybe even like and subscribe. Thank you for listening.